Hello, welcome to the call to the Natural Healing Study Group. It's our maiden voyage for an online version of this. We're used to being in person with everybody, but this is the new state of the art, so this is how we're going to be doing it. We can reach more people actually, and it's more convenient. So today we want to talk about immunity, our immune systems, dealing with this coronavirus threat. It's in everyone's mind now because it's so in the media. It's everywhere around the planet. So there's been a lot of talk about vaccinations. We're not big supporters of vaccinations, but we do want to support having a strong immune function in the body. And in order for our immune cells to do their job, they have to be enabled by having mitochondrial function. That means the little power plants in every cell have to be functioning and producing the energy currency that our cells run on. And in our modern environment, there are so many influences that downregulate the function of our mitochondria that no cellular process, no physiologic process can work nearly like it should be. Normal function isn't happening because there isn't the energy production behind it to make it happen. So we're going to talk about that tonight. And if you're taking all kinds of antimicrobials and things to try to kill things, that's one approach, but strengthening our own immune function is more important. And we don't do that just through nutrition or using herbs and things, which is a biochemical approach. But before the biochemistry in the body can really work, our environment has to be right. The biophysics have to be right in order for our physiology to function. So we're going to talk about that. And we, in our previous brochure videos, things that we've produced, we've talked a lot about the effects of the environment, the EMFs, the artificial lighting, and how they affect us, especially our immune function. But when we are exposed to these modern fields, we don't have nearly the immune capability that we did just a few years ago. The last time we dealt with the coronavirus as SARS was 2002, 2003. And that was before Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and all the cell towers everywhere. There was no 5G, and we didn't have the LED TVs and all the different, the tablets and smartphones and all the stuff that we're staring at and getting this toxic blue light that's turning off our cell function. We didn't have that back then. So we were able to deal with this, even the same strain of coronavirus that we dealt with back then. If we are confronting it now, we're behind the 8 ball, where our immune function is weakened markedly by exposure to Wi-Fi in the house 24/7, a cell phone in the pocket, looking at blue light, Bluetooth devices,
cordless phones,
all this influences that it's hard to escape from. It's everywhere now.
They were negligent years ago.
So this directly turns off our mitochondrial function, or down regulates it, attenuates it to where it's not functioning like it should. And like Jack Cruz's explanation, should be running like a Ferrari, but it's running like a Nissan Sentra blowing black smoke. So,
I think, Bobby, that's so important. I think you can't underestimate that enough. You know, this is so important, and people want to quickly get to what supplements, what do I need to do, but it's that environment that's, excuse me, constantly a problem for people, because it's something that you're in, excuse me, 24/7. You know, and if you've got big stressors on your system, it's insidious because we can't see it. You know, you can't, you know, it's like something, it's not, you know, like a heat source is going to burn you. If you take a wrong dose of some medication, you're going to get a symptom, you know, where these symptoms are insidious. It doesn't take you down right away, but it makes all the vital functions of your body have to work and try a lot harder. You know, instead of easing along, you really have to work at things. So if you have an immune challenge, your body really has to work hard, and you go through tremendous symptoms where, you know, prior times in life or other situations you didn't have to as much. So I totally agree. We can't state that enough, how important the environment is. Your environment.
And these conditions are invisible, so they're out of sight, out of mind. If you could see these, smell them, taste them, touch them, you would be reminded that you're under their influence, but because they're invisible, we don't think about it. And we just have these knee-jerk reactions. You know, the phone goes in the pocket, turned on, it's not on airplane mode. You know, that, talking about your immunity, your immune cells are produced in bone marrow. And bone marrow in our femur bone is the largest bone. It's the largest source of immune cell or blood cell in general producing cells. And that's right where people put the phone when they put it in their pocket or on their hip. So they're irradiating their bone marrow, affecting the production of and the quality of those cells that are being.
Femur bone is the big long bone in your leg. It goes from your hip to your knee. It's that big one.
Exactly. So you're also zapping your prostate and testicles or uterus and ovaries by having the phone right there. And some women put it in their bra or over their heart. Some guys put it inside their coat pocket, right over their heart. So
what's wrong with these people?
This does a few things. It not only downregulates the function of your mitochondria, which are responsible for every physiologic function, but your immune function in particular, and it puts your body into a fight or flight sympathetic dominant mode. It stimulates, the blue light does this too, it stimulates the paraventricular nucleus, which is in your brain stem, which is the start of the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight nervous system. And when that kicks in, like when the saber-toothed tiger jumps out in front of you, that sympathetic response kicks in, and that has certain functions that happen. Your heart rate increases, your blood pressure goes up, your blood sugar goes up, your muscle glycogen goes up, your pupils dilate, you start breathing deeper, you're preparing to fight or run. And there's certain functions that get turned off that you don't need when you're in this sympathetic dominant mode. Like you don't need to digest and you don't need to eliminate. So those functions get turned off. You lose tonicity in all the valves in your gut. You don't need an immune function to survive, and you don't need to make hormones to survive. So those endocrine functions get turned off, immune functions, digestion, elimination, all those parasympathetic functions get turned off because you're going to survive. You're in sympathetic dominance. Now, in the wild, when the saber-toothed tiger jumped out, we dealt with it. We either got killed by it, or we ran away, or we defeated it, and the event was over with. And we went back to our normal parasympathetic functioning. But in our modern environment, the threat never goes away. It's 24/7. You're in an environment like your Wi-Fi router or your cordless phone or the baby monitor or the wireless alarm system or the Bluetooth, your Fitbit device you're wearing to see why you're not sleeping. All these things are having this effect on you. So you're always in this fight or flight mode, and that turns off your immune function. So if you deal with
and your digestive function. as
Right.
well. And you
Can't
can't
absorb,
assimilate the foods to nourish yourself. So
and your
shoot
supplements.
yourself in
You
the
can't
foot.
utilize your
Right,
supplements.
right.
So that environment has to be handled. You can't get healthy in the same environment that made you sick. And this stuff is everywhere now. And even if it's not in your house, if you live in an apartment or condo, if you're traveling, you're in a motel
Hotels.
room, you're going to be slammed by people next to you, above you, below you, because those fields travel through the walls. They go, you can pick up your neighbor's Wi-Fi and stuff. So this stuff is everywhere. But you definitely want to, in your own environment where you can, turn off this stuff. Go back to hardwired router, telephones, get rid of the LED lights. Don't watch TV at night after sunset, because all these artificial blue light does the same thing. It turns off your body's ability to defend you and protect you.
I think we're in a whole different world now. It's like, we were recently talking to my dad about what to do in the evening. He's like, I go watch TV. I'm bored. I got something to do. Well, years ago, it might have been okay. But now, because we have all these other stressors, is like reruns of the Raymond show. Everybody loves Raymond, that important? Or is the big game, is it that important night after night? Is it really that important that you watch Wild Kingdom? Is that worth your health? I think years ago we didn't have that problem, where now we do. Is it really that important to watch that show at night? Really? So.
Well, how about Dancing with the Stars?
No, I gotta watch that. I gotta watch that.
I agree. So when
yeah.
When you do that, when you expose yourself to the artificial lighting, especially after sunset, then you're not going to sleep well. And if you don't sleep well, that pulls the rug out from under everything in your body. Every function suffers if you're not sleeping well. So we're going to handle these conditions to allow our immune systems to function in a normal mode, and then make sure that you're giving them the nutrition, that you're detoxing, that properly all these other biochemical functions then can work. Because if you're not handling the environment and being put into this fight or flight mode, you're not going to be able to utilize the biochemical functions and processes of the body. So,
and it's not to say, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm done.
It's not to say that you can't do some of these things. It's like you can never watch something in the evening or whatever, but there's a smart way to do it. Now, if we learn that these are affecting us, we can change our life around to meet these requirements. If we know that this is up against us, we might want to watch the internet at night, where you have a blue blocking screen on your filter. You might have your blue blocking glasses on. So there's other ways of doing it. If there's some show that you really want to watch, you can record them nowadays. It's a different ballgame, so we can manipulate things differently. So it's not like you've got to be a cave person, but you can change it around to fit you and your health much better than being subject to, I can only watch something at this time at this place, or if that's even that important anymore.
Exactly.
I always notice, even with ourselves, like when we go travel and we go do a seminar, you're doing your updates and you're like leaving on a Friday and getting everything ready and you're going to the seminar, whatever you're doing. This is, a lot of people do these types of things, or you're on vacation or something, or you're moving, or whatever the stressor is. When you come home, you barrel through it. It's kind of like going into armor. Going into battle, because you're going into a different situation. It's got different air, different food, different bed, different surroundings. Your immune system has got to adapt to all of that. Even if it's the most comfortable, the best, really expensive, nice room, but there's still, you don't know what they wash that stuff in. There's chemicals, there's things outgassing in the rooms. There's food that you're not used to. You get dehydrated. There's all these stressors, but your body can do it. Your immune system is strong. It can deal with this, and you can do that and come home and go on with your life. But what I find happens a lot with people is when you come home, that's when you get sick. And I want to say sick is, I want to just rather say symptomatic rather than sick. I don't really like that word because, you know, your lungs and your mucous membranes have been exposed to lots of things, but you've been so adrenalized dealing with it, your body's in that sympathetic dominant, you just got to warrioress through it. But then when you get home, you're nice, cushy, and comfortable, then your immune system goes, ah. But what happens is then people I notice get very symptomatic. They get respiratory problems, they'll get skin conditions, they'll get, you know, hot and cold chills. I'm on the couch, I can't eat, I'm nauseous. Well, all these symptoms of flu or cold or whatever. But I like to say that those are natural ways that the body responds. You know, you've been breathing all kinds of stuff, all kinds of irritants are in your mucous airways. Once you get home, your body can deal with it, and it's going to deal with it with excess mucus and drip and, you know, how the whole situation, how things go. And the quicker you can catch it and start handling it, which we'll talk about after Bobby talks about what he's going to say, then you can get caught up with it. But it's not unusual for that to happen, or for you to get exhausted, or to feel, you know, just exhausted. And people say, I feel like I've been hit by a Mack truck. It's like that expression, Mack truck. I don't know why that, that brand of truck, but that's a common expression, you know. And that lets me know that your adrenals have been just really pumping, and you might sleep, oh, I've been sleeping all week. And it's like, well, yeah, that's natural. You should. And you got mucus and congestion and stuff. That's probably natural. It's not good. Maybe you're a little running yourself a little ragged there, but that should be a clue to you to put in more things so you don't respond so poorly, or give yourself some appropriate downtime. So I just wanted to say that that is so true, and don't think that it's bad or like you got a flu or, you know, some after a situation, because it's totally natural. But what you need to help the body out. So.
And I want to talk about our food, getting electrons is the real nutrition that our food contains. It's not the protein, fats, carbohydrates, but it's protons and electrons that get broken down into that really fuel the functions in our body. And the more electrons that we have, the better everything works. The better the immune cells can oxidize pathogens and things, because they use electrons to do that. Our pH of our body is determined by the amount of electrons in our body. Every cell in our body is a battery, and it has electrolytes, which are minerals that store charge, just like in your car battery. You have water with electrolytes in it. And if you don't have enough, you can't hold a charge and you can't start that car. So you got to have those electrons. And the way we get these electrons is from being in touch with the earth directly, being barefoot on the ground or laying on the earth. You flow electrons from the earth into our body from a higher concentration to a lower concentration. And we don't do that anymore. We're literally out of touch with the earth. We wear insulators on our feet called shoes. Our houses are electrically insulated from the earth. Our beds are elevated off the ground. So we are literally out of touch with the earth. Another way we get electrons into the body is directly from the sun. When photons of sunlight hit our body, a photon is composed of 2 excited electrons. So these electrons become part of our physiology of our body. And the third way we get electrons is from our food, which is stored sunlight energy through photosynthesis. So if you eat processed, microwaved, GMO food, there's not going to be any electron charge left in that food. So most people spend 97% of their time indoors now on average. So they're not in touch with the earth. They're not getting the sun. We've been made to be afraid of the sun by the medical profession. And people wear sunscreen and sunglasses and broad hats when they go out. They're afraid of the sun. And so they're not getting the beneficial frequencies of light necessary for the production of neurotransmitters and hormones in the body, like dopamine, serotonin, melatonin for sleeping. And we're not making nitric oxide in our skin to dilate capillaries to bring the blood to the surface. to be irradiated by the sun to transport those rays of light into the body. So we are running on dead batteries, basically. So that's why it's important to be in touch with the earth. And I know it's weather permitting, depending on where you live, time of year. But you can get a grounding sheet for your bed, a fitted bottom sheet that has silver threads in it that's connected to earth ground. And while you're sleeping, and you're in bed a third of your life, so it'd be like putting your phone on the charger all night. You're putting your body on the charger. And these electrons are flowing into your body all night while you're sleeping, charging each one of your 100 trillion batteries, each cell in your body, with electrons. And this makes your body more alkaline, which is more healthy, and allows your mitochondria to produce ATP better, because in the electron chain transport phase of energy production, you have to have abundant electrons. And if you're not getting them from the food, then you have to supply them from being in touch with the earth and being in the sun directly.
So would you say people that live in more northern latitudes, and definitely through the winter, that you're not outside, that you should definitely have a fitted sheet that you sleep on and have actual skin touching the sheet at night? And you might even want a pad, a grounding pad, to put your feet on while you're on the computer, or while you're watching TV or YouTube or reading a book. Yeah.
Exactly.
Or something like that. And
Right.
I've had a lot of people ask about the grounding. I think people are really confused about grounding. And these sheets and these pads come with a wire that plugs into the third hole in the socket.
Oh,
That
right.
one is called the ground. It's the bottom one. Not the two on top look like eyes. It's the one on the bottom looks like the nose. So that one. Because that one goes to ground. It actually is wired. It goes to the ground in the construction. So I've had people kind of confused about that. Maybe just talk a little bit about that and what that really means.
Right. Yeah, there's a ground rod under your power meter where the whole electrical system is grounded. Every outlet like that has a ground terminal.
And why is that? Why do things get grounded? What does it do?
You have to have a reference for our power when the sine wave coming in the power goes positive and negative. It's in reference to ground, which would be like 0. And so that gives it a reference to create the voltage difference, the potential to make power supplies and all our electronic devices work. So it's the same as if you were standing barefoot on the earth.
So it kind of discharges that electrical energy, the excessive stuff. It can discharge it into the ground, so it doesn't.
Well, it can discharge static charges that build up in your body because you're not grounded. Like when you walk across the carpet in the wintertime when it's low humidity and you touch the doorknob and you get a spark, right? It's a static charge because you're not grounded. That's a positive charge. So you want the negative charge from being grounded there.
And it's not positive, negative, like good and bad. A lot of people think that too. So it's positive is like extra charges that are kind of not good, where the negative ones are calming and soothing, like water, and it's nice. And
when you think of negative, think of electrons, and when you think of positive, think of protons.
But people don't know chemistry, and they don't understand that. So if you think of electrons, you think of that's what you need and want. That negative charge is not bad.
That's the juice that's going to charge your batteries.
That's what's in live vegetable juice, the negative charges and all that. So don't think bad and negative. It's just an electrical charge, like in your battery. Positive and the negative side. It's like one side of the battery is bad. It's just the negative charge. Right?
So you want more electrons, and so you want more negative charge usually. Right.
Okay.
So DHA that's one of the omega-3 fatty acids that are in fish oil, EPA and DHA. And the DHA is important to create a DC electrical voltage. It turns sunlight energy into DC electrical voltage right in our eyes. And that's so important in the whole body, especially immune cells that have to zap foreign invaders, pathogens and things. So anyways, that's important that we have enough DHA. And blue light from artificial lighting, LED TVs, looking at your device, looking at a monitor like you are right now probably, without a blue filter on it.
Oh, we all have blue filters because we're mitochondriacs.
Right. So these destroy the DHA, and it destroys the ability to make the DC electrical current.
But if you're watching this, go ahead, I'm sorry.
It's important for handling pathogens and things in the body.
But if you're watching this later and you don't know about blue blocking filters or your cell phone or for your computer, that's an app that you can get. And some of the cell phones have the actual blue blocking devices in settings. You can go in there and change that. There's one called Care UIs for your computer, C-A-R-E, capital U-E-Y-E-S, Care UIs, and I think it's $2.99, and it will block it on your computer screen, and it will change it. You can put it as smart setting, but that will make it more dim at night and more bright during the day, you know, when the sun is out. So it will actually track that to monitor, to change that for you. And you can get one for your cell phone as well. Like I said, if it's not in your settings.
And you can go to TUBEROSE Healing on that's our YouTube channel, and you can watch videos on these topics that are there, how to make colloidal silver, different things like that. So I want to also talk about some substances you can take to kill pathogens so that you don't have to deal with them. You can lower the viral load, so to speak. And we all know about colloidal silver, iodine, hydrogen peroxide, chlorine dioxide. We put a couple of PDFs in the chats there you can download, and with some information that we put together. You can use these. You can use the ultrasonic nebulizer. Some of you have done this before. You put colloidal silver, or you can do hydrogen peroxide with iodine, and it makes a fog, little tiny particulates that you breathe in to your lungs and your sinuses, and it kills any microbes that might be living in your mucosa. And then it also gets absorbed through the mucous membranes into your capillary blood system. So it's an alternative
Delivery method?
pathway of delivery into the blood through the lungs. So you can take in glutathione, bicarbonate, magnesium chloride, all these different substances you can breathe in through an ultrasonic nebulizer. Also, if you use an essential oil diffuser, that's essentially an ultrasonic nebulizer also. So we want to make sure we have one that functions well. And if you need to do that, when you come home from being out around other people, you can breathe that into your lungs. You can squirt colloidal silver in an atomizer on your face and your nostrils and on your eyes and things to kill anything that you might have come in contact with.
I would say before and after you travel, maybe during. You know, if you have different ways of administering, you can have colloidal silver, you know, in drops. You can have even, you know, there's different creams and things. You can spray it. You know, you can put on your hands and wipe it all over your face and on you. You can cotton swab it in your nostrils. You can gargle with it. You can drop it in your eyes. And you could do that repeatedly if you had to travel, if you had to do, you know, if you were flying. I would definitely do that before, during, you know, during the flight, after the flight, in the airplane. I would be constantly doing that in that kind of a situation.
It's important that we are able to oxidize these foreign substances. one of the most powerful one is chlorine dioxide, and that interacts. It doesn't have chlorine in it, but um, it's able to oxidize many substances better than oxygen itself. What it does is it pulls 5 electrons out of a molecule and blows a hole in the side of it, basically.
And that's what you were saying before that you want. You want those negative electrons. So if you've got a virus or a pathogen, it's going to take from it and it won't be able to survive.
Right. But the cells, the immune cells themselves need the electrons from the mitochondrial function to be able to produce their cytokines and other immune modulating substances that they create, hydrogen peroxide, that they create to kill foreign invaders and pathogens and things too. So, but you can take this externally, you can breathe it in a nebulizer, you can drink it, and you make this, you can't store it. It has to be made on site and consumed after 3 minutes of interaction. You use sodium chlorite, ITE, and some acetic acid from vinegar. What that does is it takes the sodium off the sodium chlorite, and you're left with chlorine dioxide, ClO2. And that has an affinity for electrons, and it goes looking for something to oxidize, and it won't harm our cells. It only will harm anaerobic, pathogenic cells that are not supposed to be there. So it actually explodes them. It doesn't combine with them. Like chlorine actually physically combines with other substances to oxidize.
Like bleach or something, but this is different. Even though it has a chlorine in it, it works, a chlorine atom in it, it doesn't work the same as like bleach chlorine, correct?
Right. So this works by sucking the electrons out of a molecule from the pathogen. So it just blows a hole in the side of it and breaks down into basically nothing, harmless.
So basically you would take this sodium hypochlorite, sodium chlorite, right?
Sodium chlorite.
Chlorite, which is also known as stabilized oxygen.
Correct, in a liquid form.
Then you take it and you put a drop or two.
Start with 2 drops.
And then 2 drops of vinegar.
Or about 10 drops of vinegar.
A little bit more, okay.
Acidify it, lower the pH, and that'll separate the sodium from the molecule, and then you're left with chlorine dioxide.
Okay, so
now you let it react for 3 minutes, and then you add like some apple juice, something that doesn't have added vitamin C into it. And you don't want, well, you add that to it, like a glass full, and you drink it right away. It only lasts about an hour in the body, and then it breaks down. So you have to do this, you can do it often if you're in a critical situation, or as a maintenance dose, you can do it like 6 drops 3 times a week. But you can work up from 2. If you don't get nausea, sometimes you get nausea for about 10 minutes because you're breaking down stuff and it's giving off toxins, and your liver has to process that out. So you can go up to, you increase like 3 the next time, and then 4, up to 15 drops 3 times a day.
That would be if you have a really severe condition.
Right, and then just if you want to just detox your body from stuff that you've accumulated in the past. And once you get to those 15 drops 3 times a day without any problem, then you drop back to 6 drops a day for like 3 times a week as a maintenance dose.
Okay, so let me just reiterate this. You can get something called stabilized oxygen, and you'd start with 2 drops, and you'd put in like 10 drops of acetic acid, which is also known as white vinegar, because apple cider vinegar is malic acid, different. So you want to put in acetic acid.
Or citric acid. It could be lime or lemon.
Okay, or citric acid, lemon or lime, so many drops. It's almost like a 5-to-1, kind of. Then you dilute that out with some apple juice.
Correct.
Okay,
After you let it react for 3 minutes.
Okay, let it react 3 minutes, then you can dilute it out, and then you're going to drink it quick.
Drink it all right then.
All right, so if you have a situation, you know, you're dealing with something bad, you might want to do that every hour initially, okay? Or you would just build it up. You would then the next time you do it, you might do 3 drops with that, and then 4 drops, and you work your way up to, you do that, start with once a day, then you might do it twice a day, and 3 times a day, then you keep increasing the amount of drops, and then
15,
up to 15
3 times a day.
3 times a day.
Correct.
All right. Then you can maintain at like the 6 drops a few times a week, 3 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
Mix it for 3, let it mix, you know, with your acetic acid, let it sit for 3 minutes, dilute it with some apple juice and down it.
Correct.
Got it. Okay.
So that's chlorine dioxide.
Powerful, powerful.
And you could also be using your ultrasonic nebulizer and breathing colloidal silver. You can alternate that with hydrogen peroxide, 3%, not the 35%. That's too strong. You'd have to dilute it way down. And so use the 3% and put 2 or 3 drops of iodine in and nebulize that and breathe that in. And that will
Breathe through your nose and your mouth.
In your nose for your sinuses, and in your mouth into your lungs, all your airways. That'll kill anything that's trying to take up residence in your mucous membranes. So, and then doing hot tub is really good, especially if you have magnesium chloride or magnesium sulfate, known as Epsom salts, in the water. See, when you're in a stressed out mode like most people are, your adrenal glands, your stress organs, produce many different hormones normally, and they're able to. But when you're under a lot of stress, they're making a lot of cortisol, stress hormone, so they can't make all the other hormones that they would normally make. One of those is called aldosterone, which affects your kidney's ability to concentrate your urine. And so you have to pee more often to get the same amount of toxins out of the blood in a 24-hour period. But every time you pee, you lose water and you lose electrolytes, minerals in the urine. So you become dehydrated and electrolyte depleted. So if you're not replacing these minerals on a daily basis, you're going to become depleted to the point where you can't absorb any more from your food or your supplements, because you need hydrochloric acid to do that, to separate the minerals from the chelates, and that happens in the stomach. But if you don't have the minerals to make the hydrochloric acid, then you can't get more minerals and you're stuck. So that's why we use the betaine hydrochloride with the food and supplements to make hydrochloric acid, so you can separate the chelates from the minerals, break down your proteins, and you can sterilize the gut. So all these functions are important for being able to just absorb your nutrition and fuel your immune cells and the rest of your body. And you want to avoid gluten, which will make a plug in your small intestines, which will create a barrier that won't allow you to absorb the nutrition from your food and supplements as well, or if at all. Plus it damages the rush border in the small intestine, creating a leaky gut situation, which is more of a challenge to your immune system, because you have undigested proteins from the gut coming in, and the immune cells see them as foreign protein. They create antibodies to those foreign proteins, and now you got food allergies on top of everything else. So we want to remove these stressors from our body to enable our immune function to work better protect us. So the environmental stress is coming from the EMFs, the artificial lighting, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, all that stuff. And then with the psychological stress that we are all dealing with, a lot of these are interrelated. Having symptoms from environmental stress can create more anxiety, more psychological stress. Then there's physiological stress that comes from the body itself, from, say, if you're dehydrated or you're anemic. this is a red alert situation in the body that's feeding back to your adrenals. You're whipping the tired horse. And all these stressors get piled on top of the tired horse. And you're busy trying to make cortisol to deal with the stress. That raises your blood sugar. And when you raise your blood sugar, your insulin goes up. And then both of those are inflammatory to your blood vessels and your whole circulatory system. And the dominoes just start falling in different directions from this accumulation of stress, but your immune system really takes a hit. The more stressed you get, the more it turns off your immune function. So you're more susceptible to everything from the common cold to cancer to something like coronavirus. You're just more susceptible.
It's a vicious cycle. You got to break that.
Right. So this coronavirus is admittedly man-made. It's engineered. There's a 2015 patent that, see if I can call that up.
Was manufactured in North Carolina, the university.
University of North Carolina. Let's see.
And
here's the patent for the coronavirus. And the Purebright Institute is in the UK, and they're funded by Bill and Melinda Gates. So this is an engineered virus, it's man-made. And then they also have the patent for the vaccine.
no,
How convenient is that?
no.
But basically this was sold to China in 2015 by Barack Obama. And then they weaponized it further. They did protein insertions. They added a HIV insertion system to it and weaponized it. They put parts of different viruses from all kinds of different animals and stuff. It's a witch's brew concoction. But so this was released into the world, and now there's some controversy about the correlation of 5G being employed on Wuhan City right before this was released. And the symptoms of microwave poisoning are flu-like symptoms, but they also cause hemorrhaging because it thins your blood, affects your hemoglobin's ability to transport oxygen, and you have symptoms that you don't have with the regular flu. You don't bleed out of your lungs and things, and you don't just fall over dead like you do with the coronavirus. So this is not the regular coronavirus, which has been around. Everybody's probably got it. It's been around for years. But this is a weaponized version that mutates and changes form. And so the kill rate of regular flu is 0.1% on average. And that's, that'd be 35,000 people or more that die from the regular flu. But the coronavirus, the CDC admittedly says it's from 2 to 3.5% kill rate. So it's markedly more people that will die from it.
Now, didn't we hear that there's a couple different strains, a more virulent and a less virulent strain? There's
right, there's an L and an S version. The L version is more virulent than the S version. So, and this, again, it keeps mutating. And so if you try to make a vaccine for it, it's going to keep mutating. It takes 1.5 years or so to make a vaccine safely. And by then it's mutated to a different form, and that vaccine wouldn't work anyway. So we can't rely on that. We have to rely on our body's ability to deal with it and build our own immunity, but not be overwhelmed by it. And it's the people that are weak and elderly people. It's also race specific. It targets Asian men, but it can affect anyone, but primarily Asian men. So this is what we're up against. And so all these things that we talked about can be implemented to enhance your immune function and to protect you from contamination from this. And of course, you want to avoid large gatherings of people now because stuff can travel up to 6 feet through the air. So just by being around people, you don't have to even touch them. So do the Spock sign instead of shaking hands and stuff with people. And you can
So right now, people need to be a
minimize
little,
exposure to this stuff.
right. We need to be a little bit more diligent on hygiene, exposure, dealing with, not that we should be, you know, just totally quarantined yet, but, you know, if you're in large crowds of people, you know, airports, like we mentioned, you might want to nebulize, you might want to spray yourself in your lungs, in your mouth, in your nose, and your sinuses with colloidal silver often, and definitely work with your environment at home to mitigate, you know, so that way your home at least, and then as much as you can where your work is a safe haven that you've taken off of those stressors. So you're not in the sympathetic dominant, you're not in that fight or flight. So you can actually rest, so your immune system can make what it needs to make and not be ramped up. So you can actually be in a digestive mode and assimilating, so your environment can handle all of this. And then I'm going to share my screen, and you can do some things like have a lot of the different antiviral herbs. You know, like Bobby said, there was, you know, earlier, we want to help our bodies and not have to kill things so much. But if we can take these herbs in different forms, it's not so much as killing viral, although these are antiviral, but they do many things. Like I think I have 19 of them. I might have listed one twice, but you know, there's several things that these do. Elderberry, just start with this first one, and they make a syrup out of this. It helps, you know, common cold, flu, suppresses influenza virus. But what else? Berries, all berries are high in vitamin C. You know, vitamin C is one of the most important nutrients your immune system needs. Your immune system needs vitamin C, it needs iodine, it needs magnesium, just for starters. But all these berries are very, very high in that. That's why these goji berry and mangosteen and whatever. Anyway, lots of these berries. So that's very high in those components. Echinacea, you know, you'll find these, look at, they treated anything that's got this respiratory, it would be very good for. Look at here, rhinovirus in the nose, right? It's going to help with that. These will go through this. And most of these you have at home. You know, garlic, most people have garlic, most people have ginger. Olive leaf is easy to get. Oregano is really easy to have and grow. Calendula, which is in the, you know, a close cousin is marigolds, but it's not the regular marigold, but it's still in that family. Licorice root, astragalus root, and I'm going to get to one, dandelion root. All right, so dandelion, I just wanted to point out this one. This one has many functions. It's not only antiviral, anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, but it helps. It's like it's a diuretic, so it helps the kidneys release excess junk in them. Talks about that right in this paragraph right over here. But it also helps improve the function of the liver and of the gallbladder. So those are definitely important in detoxing and helping the body. It's also, look at it, high sources of vitamins A, B complex, and C, as well as high in minerals as iron, potassium, zinc, because it's a big root. You know, dandelion roots usually go down pretty good and are able to pull up a lot of nutrients with them. Dandelion too, the whole plant, you can eat, you know, you can eat the leaves, you can eat the flowers, you can eat, you know, the pollen, you can eat the roots. This is a really, really nutritious plant. Sage, this is another excellent plant for helping the body. It's also a great plant. What comes to mind is anti-worm and vermifuge. Basil, you know, these are all really good things. Fennel, lemon balm, peppermint, rosemary. I knew I had echinacea twice. Ginger and ginseng, okay, twice. And ginseng, so very, very important. A lot of them high in vitamin A. A lot of things high in components that help support respiratory function. And then I have on the bottom of this how to, you know, to do some quick extracts, like an herbal infusion, which is basically a tea. Infusions and teas typically use the soft parts of the plant, the flowers, the stems, the leaves. Something that you might want to cook longer, a decoction. You might want to, all the hard parts, the bark, the root, the hard berries, you can simmer longer. Basically, that's what a decoction is. And then there's infusions with an oil, also infusions and extracts. You can make a tincture with an extract to extract the oil-soluble components. You can use vodka or an oil itself, like this one is with oil. But these are just some real easy ways to just extract these components. I make most of these with vodka because it preserves them. Not that you can't, like I would use basil in my cooking. I would use oregano in my cooking. But olive leaf extract, for instance, it's, you know, those are hard, leathery leaves. And you need something powerful to pull that off. And you're really pulling off the oil-soluble parts of these plants. That's why you want to use vodka. Whereas if you cook with them and you make teas out of them, you're pulling off the water-soluble components, which are both are important, but a lot of times the more medicinal parts are the parts that you have to use an alcohol or solvent or an oil to extract. But these are things that you can use all the time and have as medicine and as a food all the time to strengthen yourself. Oh, I think they're cool.
All right. I'd like to talk a little bit about our sound table too. We have our treatment table, frequency table, that we can produce specific frequencies that treat the body. We have with our software, we have a coronavirus SARS frequency that's actually built into it. And immune stimulation, immune regulation frequencies that you can play into the body. It uses sound, doesn't use electromagnetic field, it uses acoustic energy. All the right frequencies, all the Haldor frequencies, and many more. But this can also be used to treat the body while you're in a preventative form as well as a therapeutic form for recovery. So we have all of these options that aren't being offered to people when they're just talking about vaccinations and antiviral drugs and things that I don't have a lot of faith in.
No.
They all have a lot of side effects.
So it's a lot easier to lie. Basically, this is like laying on a big speaker, but it's much more comfortable. And then you can have the frequencies going through your body with the sound. So,
if you're interested, I can share a sound file with you, one for the coronavirus and then one for like immune stimulation. And then you could just play this on put your phone on airplane mode and play it through headphones, and then have the headphones touch your abdomen so it transfers into the fluid in your body.
or your femur.
Once it's in the water in your body, it travels through water 5 times easier than through air. So it goes everywhere in your body through the water, which is, our bodies are basically big bags of water. So this is another approach that is very effective, very safe.
So it'd be better to lay on the table, but at least you could do something if you had it and you put it through your cell phone. At least you'd be getting something.
And you can treat your pets and things the same way. Just
right.
using headphones.
So that's just another good tool in your toolbox.
Yeah.
All right. We have a few minutes left. I'd like to mention, talk a little bit about an old-time respiratory treatment, because it's important to have tools on a lot of different ends. It's always better and easier to work on the prevention side, but sometimes you have to work on the cure side. And we have had a difficult patient practice for over 30 years. We've worked with a lot of medical throwaways, which is then like the medical profession has given up and said, go home and die. And we've helped people turn their life around and get out of critical situations. One thing I wanted to talk about today is something that really helps a respiratory problem. When you are so congested, you're coughing, it's hard to breathe, it's hard to sleep, you're constantly making phlegm, your mucous membranes are inflamed. One, we didn't have this tool years ago, but I would enact it now, is the nebulizer, and nebulizing something soothing like the colloidal silver to help take down that inflammation of the lungs. Okay, now that's kind of like if you walk in your taps, say your kitchen sink is plugged and there's water all over the floor and there's water just turned on running. Okay, the first thing you got to do is shut off those taps. So that's what we, then we start, we unplug it and then we mop up the floor. So this is like shutting off the taps. You start quelling that inflammation. The second thing is what's called the cold sheet treatment. And this, basically you're inducing the healing properties of the body. You are emulating a fever. You're heating the body up so it can turn on the immune cells, the immune function, and act these killer cells, your T cells, to go clean up a lot of this, increase the function of your body. So you want to emulate a fever by getting in a nice warm bathtub of warm water. You're going to put some kind of Vaseline on your genitals, and you're going to take a sock and put some powdered herbs in it that are going to further heat the water chemically. And those could be any or all of these three. You would do maybe a tablespoon of cayenne powder, a tablespoon of mustard powder, tablespoon of ginger powder, any or all three. In the bag it goes, or in a sock, tie it up, throw it in there, let it float. Don't squeeze it too much because it does make the water chemically hot. That's why you put the Vaseline on your precious mucous membrane parts so it doesn't burn. But your arms and your legs and all that's fine. You just will start feeling hotter. Then, to add insult to injury, you're going to drink a cup of hot tea, a tea that's going to make you sweat, like peppermint or yarrow. And that way you're putting the warm hot water in your body, you're inducing your body to sweat, you're sitting in hot water, and you've chemically made it hot.
You're simulating a fever.
Simulating a fever. You're turning the temperature of the body up. You're cranking it up. Sit in there 15 minutes to 30 minutes. I've done them on myself. I've done them on lots of other people. So I know this can be done, and you can do it in yourself as well. So the next thing you do is you have a bucket, like a 5-gallon bucket with some ice water sitting outside the tub with a sheet in it, soaking. So you get out of the tub and you either have somebody do this or you do it yourself. You grab that sheet and you bring it up and around you, put it around you very fast. This is great. This is a great moment because then you go for a moment. It's worth it just for that. And then you start heating up again. I mean, the shock of that cold after that hot, but you are so hot, you want to get out of there and you want some cold, but you don't know how cold that is until that happens, but it's great. Your body just instantly starts to heat up. It's really cool. And you start sweating, and then you get more covers or something on you, and you go waddle into bed and you cover yourself up, or you have somebody cover you up more. And you lay there in a delirious sweat. And you kind of go to sleep, and you kind of go in and out of consciousness. And
you cook for a few hours.
You cook for several hours. If you open it up, you're gonna have to pee. So try not to open it up for a few hours, and let yourself sweat, and get all that stuff out. Emulate that fever, and it clears the lungs, and it's just an amazing treatment. Afterwards, go get something full of electrolytes because you've just sweated out a lot of minerals. Some fresh vegetable juice, some tangy tangerine, something that the vegetable stock, bone broth that will replace a lot of those nutrients that you just sweated out. And you can do it every day for a few days if you're really bad. But it's an amazing treatment.
Indeed. So I guess we're going to wind it down. I want to thank you for joining us. And hopefully this information was insightful to you and can be helpful and maybe even save your life or that of a family member or friend or something if you share this. We need to share this on a grassroots level because it's not being communicated in our schools, in our churches, on the TV. It's up to us to help each other.
You get the foggers going with colloidal silver and chemtrail colloidal silver. All right. Thank you for watching.